Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from suffering. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one suffer from anything. May there be peace, peace and peace on earth by God's grace. Good evening, friends. The subject of my talk is the benefits of holy company. Once one person came to Sri Ramakrishna, who is a divine incarnation, came to him and said, Sir, what is the goal of human life? And even without a moment's hesitation, Sri Ramakrishna said to that person, the goal of human life is to experience divinity. But how to do it? That man asked. He said, chanting the holy name of God and having holy company, Sri Ramakrishna replied. Holy company. And also our scriptures say, holy company is like a medicine. Satang sango hi bheshajam. The company of the holy is like medicine. Medicine to cure our worldliness. That is the idea. I have been very fortunate to have been with my brother monks for nearly 65 years. And their company is holy company. When I joined the monastic order, I joined the monastic order in a city 1 mile high, this Shillong. It was the capital of that province of Assam at that time. That was British India. And the center in Shillong was lucky enough to have some 3 or 4 monks who were highly evolved spiritually. And I was lucky to have had their company. And I've been in the monastic order for nearly 65 years. And I would say that these are the most precious years of my life. Before coming here, I was in our headquarters, Belur Math. And while in Belur Math, I had the opportunity to have the company of many senior brother monks. At that time, I felt like I was in heaven in their company. Now let me talk a little bit about that center which I joined, the Shillong Center, and how the company of the monks there helped me. Their company was holy company. And the Swami who had to run that center, he was in charge. His name was Swami Soumyananda. The people of Assam used to call him Hahi Maharaj. Hahi means smiling Maharaj. He'd always have a smile on his face. And when I joined, he was in his 60s. The most pleasant natured monk at that time, Swami Soumyananda. And what did I learn from him? Well, the building where we stayed, that building had corridors all around, and that was a British style framed house. And on the corridors, this Swami would sometimes walk a little, and he would keep those corridors very clean, sweeping it whenever needed. That was Swami Soumyananda. And it is he who taught me something. He taught me to give silent service. What is this silent service? Well, Swami Soumyananda had a weak gallbladder. That's why the doctors asked him to take food which would not have any fat in it. Fat-free food. No oil or fat. And that fat was mostly boiled. Fat-free milk, the food was mostly boiled food. And I was at that time a young novitiate monk, and at that time I used to help the cook in the kitchen. And so I helped in cooking Swami Soumyananda's food also. And the doctor said that he could take a sweet called rasagulla and made out of fat-free milk. Therefore, he would be given one rasagulla every day. And I would bring his food to his room and offer that to him. And then he would eat that food. And Swami Soumyananda would, at that time when I would serve him food, would talk to me very kindly. So one day he said to me, the other day I went and used the bathroom. Bathroom is toilet, etc. And just after you had used it, and I saw something strange. I saw that the bucket which is there to collect water from the tap, that is faucet. In those days, that's how it was in Shillong. And there was a mug. So this bucket filled with water would be used by the mug for hygienic service. And the toilet bowl had to be cleaned also by everyone who would use it. And so what I did was, I knew that the financial condition of the center, Vedanta center, and those are called ashramas, was very poor. And to save money for this center, what I did was that I thought that it would be better if the bucket and the mug, which are made of steel, be kept dry, then they will not rust and they will last longer. That will be good for the center. And so every day after using that toilet or bathroom, I would empty the bucket and also I would empty the mug and put them upside down so that they would remain dry at night. And so Swami Soumyananda ji had gone after I had used the toilet, and he saw that I had put the bucket upside down and also the steel mug upside down. He asked me, "Why do you do that? May I know?" Then I explained to him why I do. Then he said, "Yes, that is good enough, but you can do something which is better. You can learn to give silent service to those who would be using that toilet. He said, after using the toilet or bathroom, you fill that bucket with water and also that mug with water. And then the next person who would come and use that, he would have to use that water which you had put there in the bucket and also in that mug. So that will be your silent service to that person. And this service is better than any other kind of service. You will serve that person, but that person won't even know that you have served that person. This is the best form of service, and that is silent service, he used to call it. That's how I learned to give silent service. Whenever I would use any toilet anywhere, I'd keep it ready for the next user. I've been in this country for, I don't exactly remember the number of years, but must be about 45 years or so. And during this period, on invitation, I had to go to many countries and many places, and I had to go by plane. Whoever would invite me would pay for my fare also. That's how I went to many places. And whenever I would fly by plane, and use that toilet, I would follow Swami Soumyananda's advice. I would make that toilet ready for the next user. I would keep it clean. And that was my service. That's what I have done so many 100 times, giving silent service. This is what he taught me, Swami Soumyananda. And then there was another Swami, elderly Swami. He was not as old as Swami Soumyananda, but he was a doctor, medical doctor, and our center there had a clinic, free clinic for people, and he used to be the doctor there. And he had a very small room, but he would keep that extremely neat and orderly. And we monks did not have many possessions at all at that time. Just a few things, but he would keep everything neat and tidy. And it is he who taught me that after using the bathroom, that has to be cleaned for the next user. Swami Bhaskarananda. He is a wonderful monk. From him I learned to give service to the other monks. I learned neatness and orderliness from him. And then there was Swami Gahananandaji. His company also helped me a lot. After I had joined the monastic order and had spent there a few days, one day he pointed to my body and asked me, "Whose body is that? Tell me." Then I said, "Revered sir, it is my body." Then he said, "No, it used to be your body, but since that day you joined the monastic order, it has become Sri Ramakrishna's property. It is no longer your body." This is what he taught me. So your body belongs to Sri Ramakrishna, that's what he taught me. And that's what I have been trying to think since that day. He also thought about his bodies in the same way, I'm sure of it. Swami Gahananandaji, and very selfless Swami. Eventually, he became the president of our order, monastic order. So anyway, when he was there in the Shillong center. Then he had to take care of the managerial duties. And there was another brahmachari or novitiate monk like me. His name was Ram Gopal. And something happened at home, most probably his mother was ill or something, and therefore he wanted to go and see his mother. And in our order, only if a mother becomes ill or something, then we would be allowed to go and see the mother, not others. We'd cut off ties with all other members. But we were brahmacharis. We still maintained contact with our mother. And so he had to go home. But he had to do certain activities, perform certain activities at the center. And Swami, but how would you go? Because who would do his work? He used to do many things, keeping the office clean and so many other things. And then Swami Gahananandaji said to him, you may go home with the permission of our Swami in charge, he is Swamyanandaji. And don't worry about your work. I will be doing your work. And so he went home and had to stay there for nearly 2 months. During these 2 months, Swami Gahananandaji did all his managerial work, and in addition to that he did other things which Ram Gopal had, Brahmachari Ram Gopal had to do. And for nearly 2 months he did that. So this is what I learned from Swami Gahananandaji, to help other brother monks. And once Swami Swamyanandaji sent me and Brahmachari Ram Gopal to see an elderly monk whose life was inspirational. And Swami Swamyananda had great respect for him. His name was Swami Premeshananda. It seems he was the principal of the high school in the city where Swami Swamyananda grew up. And so his life was exemplary, Premeshananda's. And then he became a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. And having been inspired by him, other young men also joined the order. And Swami Swamyananda, I think, was one of them. So Swami Swamyananda thought that it would be very beneficial had I and Ram Gopal, brahmacharis, 2 novitiate monks, had we gone to see Swami Premeshanandaji. So with his permission we went to a place in not a few hundred miles away from Shillong. And that was in Bengal, the adjoining province. And so both of us went. That was a village center, and Swami Premeshananda used to live there. And then when I saw him, he might have been, I don't know, maybe 70 years old or so. And I saluted him as all young monks used to do in those days, saluting the senior brother monks. And Swami Premeshananda then asked me what my name was. I told him that my name was Brahmachari Jyotirindra. Then he said, no, not that. What is a pre-monastic name? But it is not the custom in the Ramakrishna Order to talk about our pre-monastic life. So I was hesitating. Then he said, don't worry, tell me I am an old monk. There will no harm will come to you. So as he had ordered me, I told him what my pre-monastic name was. Then he pointed to my body and said, do you know how old you were when you were born? I said, revered sir, I don't think I was any older than an average sized baby. Then he, with his two hands, he showed me how large I might have been as a baby. Then he said, then when you were born, you were this large, this small actually. That's what you were. But it looks like you are not satisfied with your small size of your body. You wanted to expand. So when I ask you where you were born, then you name that city where you were born. You expand to include that city, Shillong. I was born in Shillong. And then Swami Prameshananda said, well, but your body was so much smaller. Still you thought that that city is where you were born. That means it seems that you were not satisfied with the limitation of your body, the limitation of the size of your body. So you wanted to expand. Then if I ask you how, in which country you were born, then you will name India. That is so much larger. So I would say, why do you stop there? You are born in this world, isn't it? That is so much larger. Don't stop there. You are a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. You have to expand and expand and expand. You have to expand your selfishness. Eventually, it will include the entire world. That's what he taught me and the other monk who had gone with me. And then I also learned some other thing from another monk. His name was Muktananda Swami. He was in the Benares Hospital Center of the Ramakrishna Order. He used to serve there. He was a dresser, very expert dresser, and so he would dress the patients who would have surgery and all that. And he would take very good care of them. His name was Swami Muktananda, otherwise known as Bon Bihari Maharaj, a person with a wonderful golden heart. I saw him much, much later. And he would serve people as the manifestation of God. He served the patients that way. So the doctors liked him because his service was so wonderful. And then when he became much older and he was not even able to walk, he had to use a wheelchair. Somebody else would put him in the wheelchair, and then also he would go on serving the patients because he was such an expert dresser. And that was Bon Bihari Maharaj. And he would go and serve them. Swami Muktananda. From him I learned how to serve people as the manifestation of God. And Swami Madhavananda was one of our presidents. At that time he was not the president. At that time he was the General Secretary of the Ramakrishna Order. He had to do executive work to make sure that the order would run properly. And then from him I learned something. Swami Madhavananda was, while he was General Secretary, another Swami named Swami Nirjarananda, otherwise known as Mohit Maharaj. He was a junior monk. He came from one of our centers in Calcutta, because Swami Madhavananda was at our headquarters, which is in Belur Math, a few miles away from Calcutta. So he came, and then he had something to ask him. But there was a time when Swami Madhavananda would shut the door of his room, and at that time he would think of God. So when Nirjarananda Swami, otherwise known as Mohit Maharaj, came with some business in which Swami Madhavananda's instruction was needed, then he was told that the door of his room was closed, and he most probably was saying his prayers and meditating. So he waited. Then he waited for an hour or more, and afterwards, when the door was opened, he entered and saluted Swami Madhavananda. Swami Madhavananda said, "When did you come?" Then Swami Nirjarananda said, "Well, I came 2 hours ago." "Then why did you not enter my room?" Then he said, "I was told that at that time you were busy worshipping or meditating. That's why I didn't want to disturb you." Then Swami Madhavananda taught Swami Nirjarananda or Mohit Maharaj, "You see, for me work is worship. Work is worship of God. It is not doing work as worship, but work is worship," he said. This is what Swami Madhavananda taught Swami Nirjarananda. To him, work had become worship. This is also called Karma Yoga in Sanskrit. So I told you that when I was there in Belur Math, I was transferred from Shillong Center to Belur Math headquarters because I had some audit experience. I used to be a government auditor before joining the order, and these other Swamis knew about it. And Swami Bhaskarananda at that time was General Secretary of our order. So our headquarters at that time started getting some government grants to do some charitable work. And so accounts had to be kept in good order so that they would, when they would come to see our accounts, they would be pleased. And he thought that it would be nice if I was there, if I were there. So that's why I was taken to the headquarters from the Shillong Ashrama. And there I had to serve. And when I went there, Swami Bhaskarananda had to make room for me to sit in the office. And there was a secretariat table. There was a large table and with drawers on both sides. And people could sit on both sides and work and use that table. So I was asked to use that table, half of it. And then so I was prepared for it. Then Swami Bhaskarananda, he was General Secretary and many, many years older than me. He came and knelt down on the floor and he started pulling out the drawers which are on my side of the table. And they had some papers in it. So before me there was another Swami his name was Swami Asimananda. He used to be there working, but he was transferred to the Banaras Center. So all those papers were used by him. And then he said, "Oh, these are Asimananda Swami's papers. So let me see them because they can be useful." Then he sat there on the floor, bare floor, and he started taking out the papers from the drawers. There are several drawers there. And I said, let me help. He said, no, you won't know which paper is important. Then he himself took out so many papers, and then the rest of the drawers, which did not have that many papers, I was asked to use. This was Swami Bhaskarananda, who was the General Secretary at that time. And he sat on the floor to help a novitiate monk and help him. So I remember that. That is. And also, Swami Bhaskarananda taught us another thing. He said, when you become sannyasis, then you would be asked to give talks in different places, spiritual talks. And after the talk, the devotees would say how good your talk was. But don't believe in those there, what they say. They say that to please you. Ignore what they say. And think that you have given service to them only. This is what Swami Bhaskarananda thought. And he was so kind-hearted that eventually when I was sent to this country, at that time he had been made the president, and his eyesight was poor at that time. But so I had to start very early in the morning to catch my flight from Calcutta to this country. First I had to go to Rangoon and by plane. And so I had to go to the airport to catch that flight. Then it was very early in the morning, the flight. So the car which would take me to the airport came, and in the darkness of the early hours of the morning, Swami Bhaskarananda came walking, held by another junior monk and with a flashlight. Then I knew that his eyesight was not good, and he was elderly also. So I said to him, Maharaj, that's how we address monks there in India, senior monks. Maharaj, you should not have come and taken that trouble. They said, no, I wanted to see you off. I wanted to see you off because I love you. That's what he said. So I still remember that, his love for a junior monk. He came in the early hours of the dark hours of the morning to see me off in spite of his poor eyesight. These are certain things which I learned from these holy people. So what actually runs our monastic order is love for brother monks. So it was like heaven for me. And when I was at the headquarters, and the senior monks loved me. And when I used to work in the headquarters office, then those senior monks in the monastery, many of them would come to see me. And there was Swami Swananda, who was the assistant to the General Secretary. He would say to me, he addressed me as Jyoti Maharaj. Jyoti Maharaj, your guardian angels are coming. Those guardian angels were no other than those elderly Swamis of Belur Math. They loved me. So they would come one by one. They would, in the morning, they're all retired, so they would visit. There are 4 temples in Belur Math. The Ramakrishna temple, Swami Brahmananda temple, the Holy Mother's temple, Swami Vivekananda's temple. So they would visit all those temples and salute there, and then they would come to see me. So that's why Swami Swananda would say to me, Jyoti Maharaj, your guardian angels are coming. So such was the love of the monks. That's why I felt like I was in heaven. If at all there is heaven anywhere, then the Belur Math was heaven. And those monks were manifestations of divinity. Thank you for your patient hearing.